Our energy is limited. No matter how much coffee or Red Bull we consume, there's a limit to how much we can do in any given day. I've encountered a number of people who think that taking a break is slacking off, and the true high performers don't take any breaks. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm all for working hard, but I draw a line between working hard and overworking. I've noticed that this extreme, all-in mentality often results in excessive amounts of stress, burning out, and ultimately low levels of productivity in the long run, despite massive amount of effort put in. However, I am optimistic because there does seem to be an increasing number of people who are realizing the impact of overworking and underresting. We're making progress, but we still have a ways to go. Growing up, one of the first ways I learned about the importance of rest is in swimming. I spent 10 years as a competitive swimmer, and all our workouts were structured around interval training. If you aren't familiar with interval training, it's where you do a series of repetitions in a specified time period. For example, a set could be 10 repetitions of 100 yards on a 1 minute 20-second interval. Your goal is to swim 100 yards at a pace so that you would finish sooner than the interval of 1 minute 20 seconds and have some time to rest. So if you finished in 1 minute 15 seconds, then you would have 5 seconds to rest until starting the next interval. And you repeat until all the intervals are complete. One thing I observed from many years of interval training is that it resulted in more effective and faster improvement of my swimming performance than simply swimming continuously for a long period of time. Steady, continuous swimming is fine for leisure exercise, but if your goal is to be able to swim faster, then interval training is the most effective way to get there. To illustrate this further, we'd regularly do high-intensity sets that included longer rest. For example, we might do repetitions of 50-yard sprints on a 2-minute interval. If you compare that to the previous set I mentioned with 100 yards on the 1 minute 20-second interval, it's less distance, but higher intensity and more rest. We typically finish a 50-yard sprint in 25 seconds, so we would get more than 1.5 minutes of rest. My big takeaway from that training approach is that higher intensity requires longer rest. We would also taper before a big competition. If you aren't familiar with tapering, it's where you lighten your workouts for the weeks leading up to a big competition so that your body is optimized to perform at its best. It may seem counterintuitive to take it easy before a big competition, but pretty much every top performing swimmer in the world tapers before a big competition, so it clearly works. If you're curious to learn more about and understand some of the science behind this, I recommend reading Peak Performance. They have an entire section on rest and how it plays an important role in performing at your best, and I consider it the best summary that I've ever come across. The lesson here is that better rest leads to better performance. The most extraordinarily productive and high-achieving people practice great rest, and it's a core part of how they achieve their very best. Attempting to charge through life without adequate rest will leave you stressed, burned out, and falling short of achieving your full potential. On the other hand, great rest renews your mind, energy, and focus to help you be the best that you can be. In this day and age, our minds are constantly on from so many things vying for our attention. Anything that allows your mind to turn off and quiet down is great rest. Sleeping well is a core part of great rest. I consider it the single most important thing that you can do to rest well. An important way to set yourself up for a good night's sleep is to establish a good evening routine, which you can learn more about in one of my other videos. There's no one right way to rest. What works for someone else may not work for you. Some people like to listen to music, while others like to go for a walk. Great rest is whatever works for you. During the weekdays, I work 8 to 9 hours a day in my job at a software company. Each day, I set aside time for 3 breaks, 2 30-minute walking breaks, and an hour-long lunch break. My job can be very demanding, so these breaks help me renew my focus and maximize my productivity. Without these breaks, I definitely would not be as effective at my job. The way I rest during the workday is similar to the interval training I talked about earlier with swimming. The more intense my workday, the more that I have to rest. It may seem counterproductive to rest more during an intense workday, but like in swimming, it really does work. I used to think that I could just power through the day with coffee and the breaks were a waste of time. But over the years, I've learned that taking breaks throughout the day actually increases my overall productivity. In the evenings when I finish work, I exercise for an hour and then take an hour-long dinner break. Together, these two help me rest from the day. After dinner, I'll spend some time reading or working on things like these YouTube videos. But generally, I wind down around 9 p.m. so that I can set myself up for a good night's sleep. On the weekends, I set aside plenty of time for rest. If I've had an especially busy week, I'll let myself sleep in during the weekend mornings and often take an afternoon nap. I also spend time doing things that I find restful and restoring, like hiking or playing the cello. Like I said earlier, the higher your intensity, the more you have to rest. When I was younger, I YOLO'd through life by having busy weekdays and busy weekends. More times than I can count, I ended a tiring work week only to chase a myriad of hobbies and a packed social calendar on the weekends. Over time, I wore myself out trying to do too much. But after I started being more deliberate about my rest, I found myself accomplishing more and living better. It's almost like I enabled a cheat code for life. And during the making of this video, I worked in 45-minute sessions and took a 30-minute break between each session. It wouldn't make sense to make a video about rest if I'm not incorporating the lessons myself. Different things may provide more rest than others, so it may take some experimentation to see what works best for you. If you're not sure where to start, here are some suggestions. Lay down for a 15-minute nap. Go for a 10-minute walk. Practice 5 minutes of mindfulness. You can learn more about this in one of my other videos. Put on your favorite album and listen to a few songs, and don't do anything else besides just listening to the music. Watch some silly cat videos. How exactly you rest is not as important as establishing the habit of rest. Once you've found things that you find restful, incorporate them into your daily or weekly routine. Over time, you should see your productivity increase and an overall better sense of well-being. I'm sure you'll be happier too. Like this video if these tips were helpful and subscribe to get more tips like these. Leave a comment below with how you rest and any tips that you have. I'd love to hear them.